Welcome to Scrunchy Time. I'm Nicole Hegstead, your fertility advocate. After 6 years of infertility and 3 miscarriages, I decided that I needed to become the advocate for my own body. If you're exhausted from struggling to get pregnant and want to know more about how I can help, check out my website at www.nicolehegstead.com.
And I'm Bridget May, your children's health expert. My son was born with a heart condition that led to 3 open heart surgeries, cath labs, a tracheostomy, and a ventilator. After being fed up with mixed opinions, I became my children's own advocate. If your child's health is lacking, then check out my website at www.bridgetmay.com to find out more how I can help. Put your hair up and pay attention while we discuss today's hottest topics concerning female hormones and healthy kiddos.
We aren't silky.
We aren't crunchy. We're scrunchy.
Hello and welcome back to Scrunchy Time. So I think this is our 8th episode and we're so excited that you're here. Today, Bridget is actually visiting me from out of town, so we get to film it together. So we actually have several visitors, as you can see, little ones. But the biggest thing we're bringing you in this episode is my good friend, Hannah Fellows. We've been friends since I was, about 19 and just really hit it off. And always looked up to her as far as how much she knows about health and nutrition, and all of that kind of was a guide for me in my early years. And she has recently started getting into helping women with pregnancy and birth and postpartum and all of that. And so, Hannah, I'm going to have you take it away and tell us how you got into this and what your story is.
All right. So thank you again for having me. This is super exciting. I've never done anything like this. So yeah, this is just fantastic platform, and so excited with what you guys are doing. And yeah, it's just awesome to be a part of this team and be networking with you guys. So yeah, I this whole blogging and Instagramming, and hopefully more someday at some point, was just inspired by my own journey, really. I had a very, very hard postpartum experience that led me to so much introspective learning about my own anxiety and different things that I've dealt with my whole life, but it all culminated in my postpartum experience with my son, who was born 3 years ago, and then grieving miscarriage of my second child just over a year ago. So yeah, it just all came together in this messages and words that just started pouring out of me, and my own helped me heal really from those 2 specific things, the postpartum and the miscarriage. I have always found comfort in writing and words and speaking true things to other people through blogging or poetry or story writing or whatever it is. So this became an outlet really for me to heal from these I don't want to say traumatic, but yes, traumatic experiences. So yeah, it's been probably, was it September or October that I started the blog officially. I've been blogging for years and years, but this was the first really professional and really good looking blog that I've ever had. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about, I realized how much I wanted to help women navigate their pregnancies and their postpartum experiences, specifically talking about things like anxiety and depression and pregnancy loss, postpartum grief, all these different things, inserting natural health into that. And I mean, there's just so many facets that I felt really, really burdened to talk about. And I realized that I could add my own unique voice to the beautiful conversations that I saw beginning to happen in our culture. There's this beautiful shift that's happening, and slowly but surely, and I realized that I could really take part in that. So yeah, that's basically how that all came to a head there. So
that is so awesome. That is so awesome. Yeah. And it's such beautiful work. There is so much where a lot of women are suffering in their own grief, and we don't talk about it, at least in America. We don't address it. So I guess what is the biggest problem that you see with these things, with the postpartum, with miscarriage grief, things like that? I know there's not a lot of grief in pregnancy, but if you see a problem in there too, you can throw it.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, one of the main things that I've noticed just in the last few months of blogging and talking, and the past year of talking about my miscarriages, how many private messages I'm getting from just friends that are like, oh yeah, I had a miscarriage 5 or 6 years ago. I've had three, I've had three, or I just had a miscarriage this year, or, whatever the situation is. And they're thanking me, number one, for talking about my story, because it's giving them the words that they never had to talk about their own stories.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also being very open about the fact that there was so much lack of information. Several girls actually just in the last probably few months have mentioned to me that when they went in for an ultrasound and they found out that their baby was no longer alive, the doctor sent them home and was like, sorry, they were given no information. One dear friend, she said that she expected basically to just start her period, and woke up one morning, or one middle of the night or whatever, thinking she was having her appendix was bursting because she was in such pain, and she did not know that was going to come. It's like, doctors aren't telling women what's going to happen. They're basically just saying, well, there's no heartbeat, go home.
Yeah.
Here's a pill, or maybe here's a pamphlet or something. They're not being told even the basic function of what's going to happen when you lose your child. And it's traumatic. I mean, and these women have no place to talk about this, and they feel like, well, maybe I was just the only person that didn't know these things. Maybe I'm just stupid. Maybe maybe it wasn't something that I should have known, or whatever horrible invasive thoughts that they're having, and then they're worrying obviously about, is this normal? The ultimate question of motherhood, is this normal? Wondering if they're actually more sick than just miscarrying a baby. Like, is there actually something more wrong going on? And so it's just like panic on top of grief, on top of being postpartum afterwards, and nobody recognizing that. I mean, we barely recognize postpartum when you actually have a baby. We don't recognize it at all when you have a miscarriage. So yeah, I mean, that's been one of the biggest things that I've felt like I want to talk about. Like, it's hard to have those conversations about, this is literally what's going to happen to your body when you have a miscarriage, or this is literally what's going to happen when you go through postpartum, or anything like that. It's hard to talk about those things, but they are things that need talked about because nobody knows.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it does make it more traumatic because women aren't prepared for those things,
Exactly.
Like, oh my goodness, what's happening to me?
Yeah.
I read a blog post once talking about how the way that miscarriages are portrayed in the media. And it's usually, that a pregnant woman grabs her belly, cries out in pain, and all of a sudden there's like a gush of blood all over the floor, and it's like, that has nothing to do with reality at all.
Right.
And then it's
right.
Much. Like, she takes a nap, and then it's done, and it has nothing to do with what a miscarriage is.
No. I mean, there's this huge recovery period that we don't even talk about. And I mean, I've even had
birth. Like, you have
right, exactly. You do. Yeah. And especially if you're further along than, a couple of weeks, it's an actual, it's birth. It is birth. It is postpartum.
Yeah.
But you're also grieving at the same time. And that is what makes it so incredibly difficult and so hard to navigate. So
yes,
yeah, just trying to add words to that and give people the words that they don't have to talk about that. So
yes.
Yeah.
Another huge problem I think I see is the lack of understanding from others that have either never had a miscarriage, or who even have but are kind of like, oh, I have two, and then let's move on. Like, they don't really want to talk about it because they stuff their own pain down. So I guess if you have any advice for friends or family who know someone who's experiencing a miscarriage.
This is actually, I'm so glad you asked that, because I literally just had 2 conversations in the last week with people who they always come to you very hesitantly, like, well, so how are you? It's that kind of question of like, so how are you? Really, how are you? They want to know, but they're so afraid to say anything. And both conversations happened with, close people to me. and they both said almost the same thing. Like within the same day, I had these conversations. They said, I'm never sure if you want to talk about it. I'm never sure if it's painful for me to bring it up to you. And I believe either to one of them or both of them, I said, there's this one quote that I read ages ago, or, ages ago, probably like last year. Feels like ages ago. It's been a long year.
Yes.
But, and I wish I could remember who posted it or who said it. It was just one of those things I read that stuck in my mind, was that when you lose a child, no matter if it's a miscarriage or a stillbirth or an older child, no matter what happens, it's not something that you forget. So you are not reminding us of something that we forgot.
Yes.
What you are doing by bringing up that child, by bringing up that loss, is giving us the space to talk about it, to talk about something that's on our minds almost constantly. And yes, please bring it up. Don't be afraid to, don't think that you're going to bring up something that's going to cause us pain. It already causes us pain. But talking about it, going through those memories, whatever memories that we have, going through those healing experiences, knowing that someone wants to talk about it, someone wants to listen to us and hear our story is the most important thing that you could ever do for someone. Just be there. Don't feel like you have to fix it. You can't fix it. Yeah. It is not something that you can smooth over, and don't try to smooth it over because it makes you uncomfortable, especially. That is the worst thing that you can do. Don't try to dismiss it. Don't try to say all of the party lines of, well, it was meant to be, or God doesn't give us more than we can. Just don't. Just be there.
You can get pregnant.
At least you can get pregnant. At least that maybe there was something wrong with the baby. Maybe there was whatever are the common lines that people always say. Don't say those things. That's not what they need to hear. They need to hear things like, I was thinking about you and your baby and how old your baby would be now. Try to remember dates, try to remember important, like when they would have been due, or the day that they lost their baby. If you can remember that, or even the same month, if they miscarried in, like I miscarried in December, I had so many beautiful messages coming from loved ones saying, I thought about you today. How are you doing? Just checking up, making sure I was okay in my grieving process,
Yes.
And letting them have that space of just talking about it and being okay with talking about it. That I think is a huge shift that is happening in our culture and amongst, especially on social media, especially, thanks to Instagram, thanks to blogging, thanks to people like you and me and other people. Just watched a beautiful live video from Crystal Payne this morning. Money Saving Mom is her handle on Instagram. She's struggled with infertility and had beautiful words to say about that. And I was just like, this is it. This is what we need to be doing. This is what we need to be talking about, opening up to people and to each other, and just holding that space so that we can be comfortable talking about these things.
Absolutely. Yes, I totally agree. I think the biggest fear I had, especially with my first, was that I would forget. And obviously I realize now that that's going to happen, and
right.
Especially, but like nobody else even knew really about our first miscarriage. And
right.
So feeling like there's no evidence of that there was ever a life, and that, I don't ever want to forget that there was a baby there, and all of that. And so I feel like it's very important, like you said, to ask, I was thinking about you and your baby today. Honor the baby. Like, just because the baby has passed, just because you never held that baby doesn't mean that the baby wasn't very real to the mother,
Yes. And acknowledging, like, if they gave that baby a name, sometimes most women probably don't. But especially if they were far enough along to know the gender, or if they saw the baby, like, that is super, super meaningful.
Yes.
Sometimes they will give the baby a name, and you can ask about that. Like, does your baby have a name? That being able to share that, because, I did give our baby a name, and I I never felt that's something I've only shared with maybe a few people because they've asked, nobody asks that question.
Yeah.
And because, it was, not a viable pregnancy, it's not seen as something that maybe even deserves a name, but it does. That life that, you don't have to know the gender. You don't have to know anything about that baby other than it was a life that deserved a name and a place in your heart, and anything, it just acknowledging that was a life that was worthy of a name and a place in your heart. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're so right. Like, so people have even acted funny if I say, oh, we named our first one Hope, and they'll be like, named your baby that died, and
yeah
I did.
Yeah.
I wanted to honor that baby, and we've named all three of ours, but yeah, it means so much to me. And even with my close friends now, you and Bridget, I can refer to my miscarriages by the baby's names, and you guys know the ones I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
So precious to me not to have to say my second miscarriage back in 2017. It's
exactly
peace, or hope.
Exactly.
Name, and that means a lot.
Exactly. It does. Yeah. And especially because if you have to keep saying, the baby I miscarried, the baby I lost.
Yes.
That's hard.
Yes.
That is hard to keep having to say those words. It's like, I read this also somewhere, probably on Instagram. Most of everything that I read is on Instagram. But they said pregnancy loss is such a hard term. It's like that's the only term we have, miscarriage. These hard words are all we have. It's like
viable pregnancy.
We didn't lose a baby.
Right.
I found it. I knew where it was.
Yeah. Yes.
My child died. Like we're so afraid to say the harder words that we come up with even harder words to say. Yes. Like we're so afraid to say, yes, my child died.
Yes. That
we come up with these obscure hard words like miscarriage or, I miscarried. That sounds like I did something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I carried it wrongly. No, that's not what happened.
Right.
Something happened, but it wasn't your fault.
Yes.
It wasn't something you did.
Yes.
It was just something that happened for whatever reason, and that's another point too, is that it's kind of this twofold. I was explaining this to a girl that I had a conversation with that had just had a miscarriage, first child. You could tell she was like at that brink of pouring out all of this feeling and information and stuff she hadn't had a place for. And so we got to have these wonderful conversations and crying and just like letting all of this stuff out that she hadn't had a place for yet. And, you could tell that she was like, was it something I did? What was it, something that I could have prevented or anything like that? And I looked at her like straight dead on. I was like, two things that are going to seem really, really counterintuitive. They're going to seem really opposite. Number one, babies don't just die. Yes, there's a reason. Something was wrong. Something was unhealthy. Something wasn't attached right. Something happened. Yes, you could take comfort in something happened. But number two, it's not your fault. Something happened, but it's not your fault.
Yeah.
Period. Don't ever think anything other than that.
Absolutely.
They seem so opposite, but they're both as true as night and day. Like that is so important to remember. So
totally. Yes.
Yeah.
No, yes. So good. So good. I totally agree. Yeah. So that is so awesome. So I know we've talked a lot about miscarriage, maybe a little bit about postpartum.
Yes. Absolutely. Postpartum is so misunderstood in our culture, and things are starting to take turns, but it's still so far. We're still so far from where we need to be. And I mean, I went to a baby shower just this past week, and for all intents and purposes, the baby shower was great. Obviously it was classic baby shower. We're showering the mom with all these beautiful baby clothes. We're showering her with diapers and wipes and stuff. And I gave her mother's milk tea. I'm like, wait a second, like, this is, what would happen if we, instead of giving them just all the cute outfits, these new moms, especially first time moms, what if instead of like giving them all the cute outfits, everybody brought a covered dish for them to put in their freezer? Like, that's what needs to happen in our culture. And we're so far away from that. It's like, everybody's all excited to see the baby, but nobody cares about the mom. And that takes such a toll on you as a new mom, as someone who's still in that 4th trimester. Like, you already are like you're sleep deprived or deprived. That was a weird use of that word. Sleep deprived. Clearly I must be. And you already feel like everything's sore, you're doing everything wrong, the baby's not sleeping, you've hardly eaten a decent meal in weeks, like, your relationship with your husband's going haywire, like, everything is just going awful, and yet you don't feel like you can take care of yourself because it's not about you, it's about the new baby, and everybody wants to come and hold the baby and then leave. Everybody wants to come and see the baby or ask you when you're going to bring the baby over, and all that kind of stuff. Like, everything's focused on the baby. We forget about the moms, and the moms need just as much care, if not more. We are so wrapped up in anxieties that pop up that we never knew existed. Like, I could not believe almost immediately after my son was born how anxious I was. Like, I knew it was, I kind of could tell it was coming, and I was trying to find those words for that before he was born, but I didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't recognize it in myself. And it was like almost immediately, as soon as I had him in my arms, years worth of anxiety just piled up inside of me, and I lost it. I had complete anxiety attacks about 3 months old, and had mastitis 4 times in 2 months.
Wow.
4 times in 2 months because I was so anxious, and it all just piled up right in my chest. And that was also due to a lip tie issue and other things that I didn't realize were actual issues at that point, because I didn't know how to talk about it. I just figured I should know what to do, and I should just, fall into this. I mean, even breastfeeding, like, I sat down to breastfeed him at a day old and was just like, I've known about breastfeeding my entire life. I have read books. I have watched people do it. I have been around this culture of breastfeeding my entire life. And I still had no idea how to do it. I had my little midwife's assistant crawled up in bed with me and was like, here, do this, lean back. I'm like, oh, okay. That makes sense. Yeah. It took this learning curve. It's like, you can think that but you go into it thinking that you should know all. This should just come naturally. It's motherhood. I should just be able to fall into this naturally. And then you're faced with all these decisions that you've never made before. And everyone's looking at you like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What choice are you going to make? And no wonder. Yes. No wonder postpartum anxiety and postpartum depression are insane, off the charts. People are, on loads of medication for it, not knocking medication for what it's worth. That's a whole other conversation. But I mean, women are committing suicide because of postpartum depression and anxiety. Why is that? Women need more support in motherhood, not just pass down outdated wisdom or insensitive comments, but real loving support, to be seen and to be heard right where they are.
Absolutely.
That is what we need, to feel like they still matter despite the fact that they're holding a cute baby.
Yes.
They need to know that they are worthy of care and support.
Yes.
We lose ourselves in motherhood, in the sacrifice of motherhood. And because that's what happens. That's what you do. And it is this huge sacrifice. I mean, why else would you get up every 2 hours through the night to let a small person suck on your boobs? Like, why would you do that if it wasn't a sacrifice?
Yes. Love, sure.
That is love. That is sacrifice. That is what you do as a mother. I mean, you pour your entire life and heart and soul into this small person, and you forget about yourself, and everyone else forgets about you too. And we just need to be reminded, and to remind ourselves, and to remind our fellow women that we're worthy of that care. We're worthy of support. We're worthy of taking 5 minutes for a shower. You know, so many people, it's like, oh yeah, I haven't showered in a week. Why have you not showered in a week?
Yes.
Is that because you just don't like showering? Or because this is a desperate cry for help?
Yes.
And we have to stop, as some, you know, if you're on the outside of someone's motherhood, you know, you're just so, you know, watching them and admiring, you know, that new mother, and you hear them say things like, haha, haven't eaten since last night, or, you know, it's almost dinner time and I haven't had more than a box of crackers, or, you know, I haven't taken a shower in a week, or I'm still wearing the same clothes that I came home from the hospital in. Haha. It's not a joke.
Yes.
It's not a joke. It is a desperate cry for help. They don't know how to ask for that. I mean, I saw probably 2 years later, came up in my Facebook memories. I looked at the date, and it was about 2 to 3 months after my son had been born. And the post was just this one-liner of like, I said, I never thought that even the thought of leaving the house could be so hard.
Mm.
And I looked back at that with fresh eyes. Like, at that point, it was like, oh, that's so funny, you know, new mom, like, haha, this is such a joke, you know. And the comments were the same way, like, oh, you know, yeah, that's what motherhood does, you know, that babies are tough, you know, haha. It was just played off as this like humor thing. And so I was using humor to mask the fact that I literally could not leave the house.
Yeah.
I literally had to walk myself through every single step of, I need to pick the baby up. I need to put clothes on the baby. I need to put my shoes on. Wait, I need to put socks on first. I need to get my keys. And okay, now I'm going to lock the door. Did I lock the door? Did I really lock the door? I don't remember locking the door, even though I just did it 2 seconds ago. Like, that kind of thought process.
Yeah.
And I know you and I've talked about this a lot with my struggles with anxiety, and how I do that a lot. But motherhood just exacerbated that and turned it into something that I tried to use humor to get around. And I was really in this, what it really was a desperate cry for help. If someone had come and messaged me privately and been just like, hey, are you doing okay? Like, is everything all right? I saw your post, like, do you need some help? Do you need me to come over for a couple of hours and just, you know, be there for you? Or can I bring you a meal? Anything like that would have just been so relieving.
Yeah.
So incredibly relieving to hear that from someone, instead of just continuing to struggle.
And I know it's important too, in our society, we have a really hard time saying yes to things like that. And
Absolutely.
so, like, even if you reach out to someone and they say no, I'm fine, you know,
Yes.
drop by, bring a meal, bring a cup of coffee, you know, and you don't need to be like, I was really worried about you. Just be like, I just wanted to stop by and see how you're doing, you know, like, make it about you, make it that you needed them, not, you know, not a worry thing, but like, don't take the no as the final answer. Clearly, like, again, in our society, we have a really hard time saying, yes, I need help, you know? And so I know I'm guilty of complaining about stuff, and people will offer, and I will say, oh, no, I'm good. I was just joking, you know? And then I go home and I'm like, oh, I really need help. Like, why didn't I say something? You know, I've never been through postpartum. So yeah, I've
right.
So don't take no as the final answer.
Right.
Out, you know? So
yes. And ask more pointed questions than, do you need anything? Like, do you need anything is a classic, like, that it's a pretty classic question, and it's okay, because moms need to learn how to say, oh, actually, yes, if you want to bring us a meal, that would be fantastic. Or, you know, if you're at the store and you see any size 3-month onesies, we're really in need of those. Throwing those kind of things out at people is really helpful when they say things like, do you need anything? Say, yes, actually I do. Yeah. But I find it so much more helpful to ask much more pointed questions than that. Say, hey, I'm making extra chili today. Can I bring you over a couple of jars? They'll be on your doorstep at 5:00.
Yes.
Just so you know.
Yes.
Things like that are like, it's so much harder to say no to a pointed question.
Yes. Yes.
Than to just a generic, like, well, I'm just kind of asking to be nice, you know, I don't really have anything in mind, you know, but asking those really specific questions is super, super helpful to the person that doesn't feel worthy of saying yes to those kind of questions.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you don't feel worthy of saying, yes, I would love a hot meal that I don't have to cook. I would love for you to come over and watch my toddler so I can nap. I would love for you to, you know, we think those things, we want those things, but we don't feel like we're worthy of accepting those things.
Yes. Speaking of toddlers.
Speaking of toddlers. Okay.
That is all really, really awesome advice. And yes. That is so awesome.
Yeah.
I love everything you're doing, like I said before, and the work you're doing is just so honorable and sacred, and
thank you.
Really excited to see what comes of it, and really looking forward.
I am too. I am too. It's a beautiful work to be in, and just every day there's just more words that keep coming out and keep popping up, and more conversations that I feel like I need to have. Oh, you want to see too? Okay.
Hello.
Apparently, it's Children's Day on the podcast.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Everybody's getting
Everybody wants to be a part of the podcast. Yes.
So how can people get a hold of you as far as your blogs go and stuff like that?
Yeah. If you want to find out more about what I'm doing, blogging about, I am blogging at www.hannahefellows.com, and I'm on Instagram at hannahefellows, also on Facebook and Twitter as well. So you can find me at all of those locations, and we'll put the links and stuff to all of those in the show notes. So
absolutely. Awesome. Cool. So if you're interested in learning more about what Hannah does and checking out her blog and all that, you can find the links below. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next episode. All right. Bye for now.
Thanks for joining us on today's podcast.
If you'd like to know more about our programs or watch the podcast in video form, you can visit our websites,
where we also share links and resources concerning the different topics that we have discussed.
Check me out at www.nicolehegstead.com.
And check me out at www.bridgetmay.com. See you next time.